Hey guys, this is Emily from Emily's Anthology, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to share with you guys what I personally think are the most important makeup brushes to have as a beginner just starting out with makeup. Now I know when you're just getting started with makeup, it can be a little bit confusing reading all these reviews about brushes and what you should have and what you must have, and I just wanted to strip that all down for you guys and show you exactly what kinds of makeup brushes you need to create every single look that you can think of, or almost every look that you can think of, especially if you're on a budget. So before we get started, I must mention that I actually did use all these brushes to create this makeup look just now, so they are going to be a little bit dirty, and I do apologize for that, but I hope that you guys find this video helpful anyway, and let's get started. So I'm going to show you guys these brushes in the order that I would use them. So I'm going to start with the base, and for the base, this isn't exactly a makeup brush, but I think the Beauty Blender is an absolutely perfect product that everybody should have. It applies makeup beautifully, and it really helps to kind of ease that process, especially if you're a beginner and your foundation tends to get streaky with a foundation brush. This one gives you a really gorgeous, really luminous coverage, I would say, but it does pack on the makeup if you need it to. All you have to do is just layer your product, whatever product you're using, and I use this for concealer as well, so that eliminates the need for a concealer brush. Moving on, the next thing I would do with my face would be my brows, and I recommend an angled brow brush. This one is from Real Technique. Now I would recommend getting something a little bit thicker. I'm not sure if you can see it here, but this brush is quite thick compared to other angled brushes, and I chose one that is slightly thicker for a good reason, which is that you can use this to smudge your eyeshadow underneath your eyes as well. So that again eliminates the need for another brush. As I mentioned before, this video is for people who are on a budget and who want makeup brushes that can do everything that they need them to. The next thing I would do would be eyes, and for the eyes, this is the area where I tend to splurge a little bit more. I very highly recommend investing in a couple of good blending brushes, although I do have a couple of not so expensive blending brushes that I use as well, just because I want to have quite a few in my collection. Now obviously the most famous blending brush is the Sigma E25 or the MAC 217, just because it does a really good job at blending all kinds of eyeshadows. And I do have a few of these in my collection, and I do highly recommend that you get a couple of these. But for Asian eyes and smaller eyes, I do also recommend that you find a blending brush that is slightly smaller, just so it helps you blend properly. These blending brushes, the 217s and the E25s, they are beautiful, but they also spread the product pretty far out on the eyes. So if you're trying to do a slightly more subdued or subtle smoky eye, then you need to have a slightly smaller blending brush. This one is one that I got in a set that I am actually going to be giving away. Something like this is really going to help you blend the products out, and if you get something small enough, you can also use it to blend the eyeshadow underneath your eyes, because these are quite big and not so suitable if you have smaller eyes to be blending underneath the eyes. And those are the only brushes that I would recommend for the eyes, just because everything else you can actually use your fingers to pack on. So what I generally do with my eye makeup is, before I start the blending, I obviously pack the eyeshadow on with a clean finger, just picking up the eyeshadow and then applying it onto my lids in the shape that I want, and then only blending it out with the blending brush. That way you don't have to spend any extra money on any other brushes. And if you want something to smudge an eyeshadow in kind of a darker area on the outside corners of the eyes or underneath the eyes, you can go in with the angled brow brush that I recommended earlier. Moving on to the cheeks, I have only one brush to recommend, both for blush as well as for contour, and that is the Sigma Large Angled Contour. This is the F40 brush. It's quite a fluffy brush, and I think this is perfect to apply both your blush as well as your contour, because it just makes application a lot easier. All you need to do is dip it into your blush first, apply it to the apples of your cheeks or above your cheekbones, and then dip it into your contour powder. And I think that the mix of the blush and the contour powder actually makes the look kind of blend together a little bit more, which is why I don't think you need more than one brush. Now I generally also contour my nose when I'm doing makeup, and the perfect brush for contouring the nose, in my opinion, is the E25. So I did recommend that you buy a few eyeshadow brushes, and you can use one of them to do the contour, so you don't have to get anything extra. And finally, the very last basic brush that I would recommend would be a kind of all-over brush. This one that I have is from Real Techniques. It's actually a blush brush, but I find that it's kind of a multitasker. They do have a brush called the Multitask brush, by the way, which is also something that you can get in place of this. I personally really like the blush brush because it's just really soft. It's got just the right amount of density to it. To apply both powder and blush if you need to, as well as contours. So this is a really great one, and the only reason I would recommend two different brushes for the cheeks and the powder is because you don't want to apply powder with a dirty brush, just in case you get color where you don't want any color. So I would recommend a separate brush just for the powder, and this is one of my absolute favorites because it doesn't disturb any concealer that you've done because of the fact that the brush bristles are so soft. So yeah, definitely something that I recommend. And that sums up all the brushes that I personally would recommend as a basic set of brushes for a beginner. Now, if you want to go a step further and get a couple of extra makeup brushes on top of that, I also have a couple of recommendations, which I'm going to show you now. Now, most of the brushes that I'm going to recommend in this particular segment of the video are focused on eyes, just because I think that the rest of the face is really easily done without extra brushes, whereas when you want to do slightly more detailed work with the eyes, a lot of extra brushes can really help with that. So the first set of brushes I want to show you are from the Sigma Performance Eyes Kit. They are the inner corner shader brush and the lid shader brush. Now they're both kind of shaped and set up similarly, and that's the reason why I like them so much. These brushes pick up pigment really well and deposit and pack the pigment really well onto the eyes as well. So if you're doing a more smoky eye, or if you want to do a detailed look where you have, 3 different sections of color on the eyes, I would really highly recommend something like this because they pack the color on really well and they pick up color really beautifully. Another set of brushes that I would also recommend are actually smudger brushes. They look like this and they're kind of flat with a rounded head. Now these are really gorgeous for smudging color and eyeshadow underneath the eyes particularly, as well as smudging your eyeliner on the upper lash line. I also use this to deposit extra color on the outer corners of the eye sometimes when I want a darker color there. And I find them really useful, and the way that they spread the color out on the lower lash line makes it look really gorgeous, which is why I would recommend something like this if you're going the extra mile with your eye look. A couple of other eye brushes that I would recommend are pencil brushes. Now I have 2 different kinds of pencil brushes here. These are from Asian brands, these 2, and they're slightly thicker and denser compared to normal pencil brushes. And the reason why I like them is that I'm not really sure if I'm explaining this right, but I like to use them in the outer corners, underneath the eyes. They kind of deposit color in a wider area than the smudger brushes that I showed you earlier, and sometimes they just do the job a little bit better, I guess. With the normal pencil brushes, this one is the Sigma, I'm not sure what this one is called, I have the old numbering on it, SS219, and this one is the Smoky Eyeliner brush from number 7. Boots number 7. These 2 are also really great, but they only serve one purpose for me, which is to smudge out eyeliner and eyeshadow on both the upper and lower lash lines. I really like them. They don't serve as many purposes as other brushes, so if you have a little bit of extra cash to spend, then I would recommend them. Otherwise, maybe get these or the smudger brushes. And the very last brush that I would recommend is a really tiny one. This is actually an eyeliner brush, but I use this kind of brush for 2 different purposes. One is obviously eyeliner. When you use gel eyeliner or even liquid eyeliner, sometimes the brushes don't quite cut it. So if you have one of your own, it would make application a lot better and a lot easier, I think. Another way you can use your eyeliner brushes, and this one in particular is something that I use for this purpose, is to do pinpoint concealing. So what you would do with an eye brush like this is just dip it and kind of stir it, I guess, into the concealer, pack all the concealer onto the brush bristles, and then just kind of tap it onto whatever imperfections that you want to conceal. And this is going to only put that concealer exactly where you want it. Tap it out so you blend out the edges a little bit, and that kind of helps you make sure that your makeup isn't too cakey while still concealing all the areas that you need concealed. And that more or less wraps up my kind of guide to what kind of brushes you would need as a makeup beginner. I hope that this really helps you guys figure out what kind of brushes you need and what kind of brushes you can stay away from, especially if you're on a budget, just to save whatever money you can wherever you can. I do understand that not a lot of people are as obsessed with makeup as beauty bloggers and beauty vloggers, and therefore don't need as many brushes as we tend to have. So yeah, I hope that this video was helpful, and I hope that you guys find kind of a balance in the makeup brushes that you have. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as usual, of course, if you have any questions or comments, just leave them in the comment box below and I will get to them as soon as I can. Thank you guys again for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!